Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories like these. Now, let's get into today's story video. Ada for snapping at my mom and running away from home, leaving my parents worrying with no knowledge of where I am and if I'm safe for 3 days. Reposted. I know it sounds terrible, but bear with me. My parents, 45 female and 44 male, and I, 17 female, have a difficult, strained relationship in which they only pay attention to me when A, I'm in a life-threatening scenario, or B, I act out. I never believed they cared about me, and I ran away from home after a violent confrontation with my mother in which she mistook me for being out when I wasn't. I was simply hanging out in the yard, and she responded brutally. I was already stressed, so when she exploded and began yelling at me without allowing me to explain the misunderstanding, I acted like a brat and snapped that it's not like she cared what I was up to, that I wish I could get out of this miserable, and that I don't have to wait long for that to happen. She snapped and exploded on me, telling me that I was a disgrace, that she regretted the day I was born, that she wouldn't stop me if I attempted to go, and that she'd be delighted to see the back of me. Basically, she confirmed my suspicions about her feelings for me. I informed her that if that's what she wants, then I don't want anything to do with her either. I believe she attempted to stop me from going by grabbing my arm, but I was out of her reach and raced off to my neighbor's home before she could catch me. Since it was dark, she couldn't see where I went. Despite feeling horrible about what I said and knowing the degree of criticism they get from our family for not reining me in, I confess I believed it was acceptable and that I was preempting them. I didn't attempt to contact them because I wanted to see how everything played out, especially whether I would be welcomed back if I ever returned and didn't resort to the street. I had cold feet a number of times when attempting to phone them, and eventually opted to wait a few days so they could cool down, which I probably shouldn't have done, but I didn't expect my parents to be concerned about where I was if I was safe. They do, it turns out, care about me. Dad came to get me as soon as he knew where I was, and we argued about the stunt I did and how juvenile it was. After seeing how deep his and her concern stretched, I felt like an AH for going NC. Someone told me that it was strange that I felt entitled to my parents' affection and attention, and that everything I did was causing unneeded drama, which made me believe that my conduct was abnormal. I'm not proud of what I did, and I really feel bad about it. It was a spur-of-the-moment decision that I made under duress because I truly believed my mother wanted me gone, but I'm conflicted because, while my friends support me, my extended family believes I acted like a cowardly a-hole who broke her parents' hearts on a whim. This picture I had of my cold, inattentive, and emotionally distant parents has now been shattered, and I'm left feeling like the ungrateful brat they've always believed I was. So, Ada, Reddit? Update. First and foremost, I'd want to thank everyone who left comments and contacted me. That's really good of you. I didn't anticipate such enthusiasm and support. Some of you requested an update, so here it is. I talked with my parents about beginning counseling. They weren't thrilled with the notion, as expected, but when I explained that having expert assistance would guarantee nothing like that happened again, they began to think about it. I believe the prospect of running away from them again clinched the deal. Yesterday was our first session. It hasn't left me unscathed. Surprisingly, Mom, who had been more dismissive of the entire counseling thing, it's unseemly was the first to open up. Of course, it took some prodding, but I don't believe I've ever heard her speak so much. She regrets what she said and did. According to the therapist, Mom has some unresolved trauma related to my going lost when I was 9 years old that they need to deal on. Forgot about that. She acknowledged that she was continually afraid that it would happen again, and that when she didn't find me in her room, she dreaded the worst. I have a tendency of texting her my precise location, which I vowed to do when I was 14 to get her off my back, but I had no idea she reads all texts and phones the parents of my friends to ensure I'm safe. I apologized for screaming at her and vanishing for 3 days, but I can see they still don't trust me not to go away. They stated they still have nightmares about it, which explains why they come to check on me in the middle of the night, and I feel terrible, but we're working on it. My dad described a conversation we had about my friends and how I told him that at the very least they understood and loved me. I'll spare you the details because there are a lot of them, believe me. But one thing that stuck with me was when he described a conversation we had about my friends and how I told him that at the very least they understood and loved me. It was his reaction then that he did not believe either was necessary, and he has since apologized for the fact that he was so inexperienced in both areas. Mom also expressed her inability to be compassionate and her difficulty in acting on her maternal instincts without coming off as overbearing or controlling her children. Because of my grandparents' involvement, we were able to unload a slew of insecurities about how she wasn't allowed to be as doting and loving as she would have liked, how Dad thought my acting out was me trying to get away from them, and a slew of other things I couldn't possibly type with a 3,000-character limit lol. Following this line of reasoning, the therapist believes it is not surprising that their parenting tactics were centered on controlling me rather than being emotionally open, which is what I need, given how they were raised and how the family runs. We came to a conclusion with them, telling me how much they love me and how proud they are of me, which still brings tears to my eyes when I remember it. So far, everything has gone well. This is a slow process that will demand a lot of patience, but it will be worth it in the end, and we are already seeing positive results as a result of our efforts. So, once again, thank you so much. Really, a great deal. Story 2. Ada for kicking my parents out of my brother's birthday and refusing to give up my siblings. In my early 20s, I lived with my parents and younger siblings in our own house, 15 male, 12 female, 11 male. 3 years ago, my parents, 44 male, 43 female, divorced. My father left to be with his lover, and a month later, my mother showed up in my house, which was an inheritance, to ask if I could take the kids for 2 or 3 days until she settled down because she was moving to her boyfriend's house. It's been 3 years now, and all my siblings get from them is a visit once a week. They pay child support, which doesn't help that much. But it was my brother's 15th birthday 2 weeks ago, and I hosted the party with my parents' assistance. I purchased the cake and sodas and invited them because, after all, they are still their parents. However, I specified on the invitation that I did not want to see their spouses because I simply do not like them. However, they came with their spouses and stepchildren, and I didn't say anything because I didn't want to cause a scene after it wasn't my birthday. However, due to the fact that he is also family, my mother requested that her stepson be included, and my father agreed that his stepdaughter, as well as his wife, should be included due to the fact that she is expecting a kid. I couldn't keep it in any longer and screamed at them, calling them selfish, irresponsible, narcissistic, and terrible parents, and telling them that their requests were out of the question because those children, whom I have nothing against, are not our family and will never be. I also told my father that he should have a vasectomy and not be allowed to have any more children, and I screamed. And if you think I'm not because I'm a bad example of disrespect and irreverence, my mother and father began to cry and call me rude. So I kicked them out. My siblings also told them to leave. They both accused me of turning my siblings against them and attempting to take them by force, but they refused. Now, my mother and father have threatened to take me to court to regain custody because I'm a bad example of disrespect and irreverence. In my country, the law allows my siblings to choose who they want to. I was advised by my grandmother, my father's mother, that I should not have restricted my parents' control over my siblings, that it is not my obligation to care for them, and that I should give them up so that my parents may resume their previous roles as primary caregivers. My father's brother informed me that I was TA for causing my mother and a pregnant lady to weep in front of them. So, Ada has arrived.